tree planting initiatives in tackling degraded areas, for instance?
Well, you see, what scientists say is if you can secure, protect original natural forests, they're known as primary forests, that's the best thing. But if you can't, then definitely you can restore them. But even when you're restoring them, the question is what kind of species, and are they also suitable to the changing climate, that kind of thing, you see, because we have seen in places where forests now are susceptible to wildfires. And also the question of, can you, after plantation and all those photo ops, can you maintain them? Can you see them growing into forests? That's the challenge, and that's not happening in many parts of the world.
Looking at that multifaceted approach that you've talked about there, what are some of the issues that world leaders were able to agree on at the World Climate Conference in Brazil?
Well, you see, in Belem, the first thing that had happened earlier last week was they came up with this major forest protection plan. It was launched, in fact, it's called the Tropical Forest Forever Facility. That's the good news. But the bad news is countries were supposed to come up with a roadmap. I mean, at least there was a push from some quarters that there needs to be a roadmap in terms of what do we do with that plan? How do we go about it? And also, how do we phase out fossil fuels? That is the bone of contention now. That's not happening, and that's where it is stuck. It remains to be seen. But then, of course, there is a pot of money that's been announced, and the Congo Basin forest in Africa is supposed to get it. It remains to be seen how much of that will be actually utilized.
And speaking of African countries that are set to benefit from some of the issues that had been agreed upon in the conference, how does Africa measure success from the UN Climate Conference in Brazil?
So there were basically two things, you see. I mean, despite the focus on mitigation, which is about cutting down carbon emissions, which is not moving, Africa was insisting on adaptation finance. That means about money to utilize in terms of coping. How do you live with all these changes? How do you become resilient? And also the loss and damage fund. So what I'm being told here is there's not been much progress. And loss and damage, yes, it's been launched, but the money is quite meager, paltry, they say, and they're still pushing for it.
All right, many thanks for joining us on the program and giving us this update. That's the BBC's World Service Environment correspondent, Navin Seed Kadka, joining us from